our webinar of Area Zero cluster formed by 6 projects: AgroFossilFree, HyPErFarm, AgroBioHeat, Renaissance, Risk for Life, and TheGreeFa. Now I'm going to give the floor for Bas Paris from AgroFossilFree project. Bas, please. Okay.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I do.
So.
Yes.
Okay, great. So today I'll briefly present an overview of AgroFossilFree and present some of our results on current energy use status in EU agriculture. And then I will hand over to my colleague Vaso, who will present their results on the factors affecting the innovation adoption of fossil energy-free strategies and technologies. So I'll try and go quite quick, so we don't delay. So our project AgroFossilFree is a Horizon project, and it comes out of the call on defossilizing agriculture. So it comes out of this recognition that EU agriculture is very much dependent on fossil fuels, and probably more so than other sectors in the EU economy. So our budget's about 2 million. It's a CSA project, and it will last until October 2023. The 16 partners are part of this project, and from Greece, Denmark, Poland, Belgium, Italy, Netherlands, Ireland, Germany, and Spain. So these are all what we call innovation hubs. So the idea is that in each of these innovation hubs, they kind of drive approaches to reducing fossil energy use in agriculture. So anyway, this is the map and an overview of the partners. I think this will be publicly available if you want to look in more detail and with more time later on. But basically, conceptually, so we have this acronym called FEFTS, which are Fossil Energy-Free Technologies and Strategies. And basically, the entire project is kind of centered around increasing awareness and accelerating the adoption of these FEFTS in agriculture. So conceptually, we've separated it into 3 pillars. So one pillar is around technologies and strategies that promote energy efficiencies. So technologies that reduce energy demand and improve energy efficiency. The second is on-site renewable energy production. So really technologies that can directly replace fossil fuel use and production and consumption on farm. And the third pillar is soil carbon sequestration, which is a bit different, but it comes out of this belief that the entire to have a sustainable agricultural system, we need to move away, or we need to adopt also different agricultural techniques that, on the one hand, reduce energy demand, but also probably helps sequester carbon in the soil. Things like no-till agriculture or conservation agriculture are probably important in this sense. So there are 5 main objectives. I won't go into too much detail here, but basically, obviously it's a research project, so we look at the current energy use status and some of the factors. And the second objective is related around creating an inventory of all the FEFTs that we know of in agriculture, making them available to farmers. And also to create collaborations in each of the 8 innovation hubs. And kind of the center of the project is the development of this ICT tool, so an online platform, which I'll go into more detail in a little bit, where all actors can kind of access FEFTs and see, are they relevant to us? How can I use them? Are they available? And our 5th objective is our results to feed back into EU and national policy making. So this is our work package approach. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I won't explain too much, but basically the platform is crucial. And the idea is that farmers and consultants and innovation brokers, as well as researchers, can all kind of collaborate and access this platform. So this is how the platform looks currently. It's live, it's online. So if you type in agricultural energy platform in Google, it will come up as the first result. There are hundreds of FEFTs already online. This is a screenshot of how it looks. It has commercial access this platform. Can you hear me?
Yes, we could hear you.
So you can browse commercial technologies as well as relevant research projects, as well as scientific papers. So the idea is that really, farmers can use this, but also researchers can use this. And please share this widely with your networks or anyone who might be interested. So to go to kind of summarize our first research, which was on the current energy use status in EU agriculture. So this graph on the right, it's directly from Eurostat. And according to Eurostat, around 3.2% of all energy use in the EU is related to agricultural use. And this is direct energy use, so energy use that's used on the farm. And of this, over 50% comes from direct petroleum products, 70% is electricity, 14% of gas, and only 9% from renewables and biofuels. So this proportion has been increasing, but it's still quite a low proportion. Now, I think what's important is, and one of the important parts about our project is that we also look at indirect energy use. So indirect energy use in agriculture can be defined as energy use that's really can be attributed to the agricultural sector and is used in the agricultural sector, but is kind of used before it reaches the farm. So things like the production of fertilizer and pesticides or animal feed. And basically we did we looked at many studies, we did some reviews, and with the methodology, we kind of found that in most cases, this indirect energy accounts for over 50% of all energy use in agriculture. So really what this suggests is that energy use is probably underreported, and that when we target interventions in energy use, we probably need to look at it a bit differently. We also need to look at indirect energy uses. So to go in a bit more detail about this, so if we look at open field agriculture, we found that fertilizers alone, so mainly nitrogen fertilizers, which are produced using mainly natural gas, account for around 50% of all energy inputs. Diesel use, so diesel implements, around 30%, and then pesticides and seeds and other are much lower. And the same, and when we look at it on the crop level, it's really the main cereals, so wheat and maize, that account for the vast majority of energy use in agriculture. And probably these sectors, are really relevant for us to target first. Yeah, so I mean, diesel use, so direct on-farm, direct energy use, which consists mainly of diesel use. At least in open field agriculture, it's very much associated with tilling practices, also a bit of harvesting and sowing, but tillage is the main one. So, for instance, looking at thefts that really prevent or reduce tillage operations can actually make a big difference in energy use already. So looking at the livestock sector, so I'm going quite quickly. I'll give some more links at the end where there's more information available. But basically, we also looked at the livestock sector, and for this we found that over 50% of all energy inputs can be associated with animal feed, and it's not so surprising if we consider that, for instance, 60% of cereal production is used for livestock feed, or there's a lot of soy being imported from outside the EU. And okay, this might be, we found that energy inputs for feed are less in beef production system, but they're really high in poultry or in dairy production systems. Direct on-farm management, it varies per production system, but generally energy inputs are concentrated in animal housing and manure management, but things like electricity, feeding or milking systems also take up a lot of energy. So for instance, in cow systems, milking systems or in dairy systems, milking systems take up most of the energy use. Again, there's a lot of variation per production system. So please, if you're interested, look at at some of the links I'll share with you. The third category we looked at was greenhouses. So in the EU, you have around 400,000 hectares, I think, of greenhouses, but there's a big variation. You have very advanced structures that are state of the art. They climatically control indoor spaces a lot, and there are a lot of other greenhouses that are basically just a plastic sheet or just a cover. They don't really do a lot of other climate control. And when we look at the energy inputs in these two, there's a huge difference. So these two tables are on tomato production systems, and we find that the energy inputs for instance, the Netherlands is almost 15,000 gigajoules per hectare, which is a huge amount. Obviously, they're very productive systems, and most of this energy is associated with heating. So if we look at what kind of FEFs might be relevant here, things like transitioning to geothermal heat pumps might make a big impact in our fossil dependency. For low energy systems, on the other hand, it's much more spread out. And as you can see, it's probably 50 or 100 times less energy intensive, these systems, but it's okay, there's not really that much energy used for heating or cooling. It's spread to fertilizers or to irrigation systems. So I think the point here is that interventions need to be very context specific. There's nothing going to be there. Nothing really exists that is kind of a panacea. We really need an intervention that's context specific and target specific farm and specific crops. So in summary, basically what our research has shown is that there's a big fossil dependency in EU agriculture, but there are also many opportunities for FEFs. And I think from our research, we have a clearer understanding of where these energy concentrations lie. So our FEFs can be more targeted, and we need to look at both direct and indirect energy systems. Vasiliki, this is my last slide, by the way. We also need to change probably agricultural techniques. We need to look at things at machinery that's non-fossil powered, so moving away from diesel to probably electric systems. We need to look at alternative sources of feed, as well as probably organic fertilizers or organic pesticides. And then lastly, so it's actually a very difficult topic to research energy use in agriculture because data is very fragmented. There's not one methodology that really all studies use. So there's a lot of further research that needs to happen to improve our understanding. So far, we've published 2 review papers on open field agriculture and EU livestock sector. So these are publicly available online. So if you need more information, please feel free to reach out directly to me or access them online. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bas, for this presentation. Then I give the floor to the Vasiliki Kariaki to follow his part of the AgroFossilFree. The floor is yours. The floor is yours. Yes, we see the presentation.
Perfect. So I'm taking the floor from Bas. And as Bas mentioned, in AgroFossilFree, the first task was to find the current energy status used in agriculture. The second part was to identify which factors affect the innovation adoption and diffusion on FEFs. It was the most sociological part. So I'm going to present you the results of this research. So the goal was to identify farmers' needs, innovative ideas and interests about FEFs. For that reason, we conducted 470 farmers surveys in total in all AgroFossil-free countries. We had 8 countries hubs, and also we conducted expert interviews, 41 with a focus on advisors. We ensured that adopters and non-adopters of FEFs of these technologies are included in the sample. So we covered all production systems in our research. We had open field crop production, greenhouses, and livestock production, all kinds. Also, in our final sample, we had some mixed systems, meaning that we had, for example, livestock production combined with open field crops. So we divided FEFTs into two main categories. FEFTs, as Bas mentioned, is the acronym for Fossil Energy Free Technologies and Strategies. First, we examined the adoption of clean energy production on farm, meaning the adoption of renewables such as photovoltaics or biomass use or wind turbines or heat pumps. Secondly, we examined the adoption of energy-saving technologies and practices such as efficient buildings, tools, precision agriculture, and conservation agriculture for open field. And finally, as an auxiliary method, we examined the adoption of soil carbon sequestration practices, for example, manuring and organic fertilizing, crop residue management, minimum or no tillage, and crop rotation. So, a FEFT's adopter is defined as a farmer who uses either renewables on farm or energy efficiency technologies and practices, or both. So, according to grant agreement, the goal was to collect 50 to 60 farmers per country and to equally distribute, we try to equally distribute these farmers into plant and animal production and have equal numbers of adopters and non-adopters. So, overall, most of the farmers were aware of these technologies and practices. Most important source of information for the awareness was internet, followed by the extension and advisory services and technical press, but we also found that important role play other farmers and manufacturers. Most used renewable technologies on farm was solar by far, followed by use of biomass or biofuels and biogas, and finally by heat pumps. While this energy was mostly used for heating and cooling of buildings, for lighting, and for selling energy to external consumers. So moving to the energy efficiency categories, we had 5 main categories: efficient buildings, tools, vehicles, precision agriculture or precision livestock or indoor agriculture for greenhouses, and finally conservation agriculture for open field farms. So the most highly adopted energy efficiency technologies was for open field farms, as you can see in the diagrams, conservation practices and precision agriculture. In greenhouses, efficient buildings prevail, followed by precision agriculture and efficient tools, while in livestock also efficient buildings prevail, followed by efficient tools. So we examined which were the main motivations for adopters to adopt these technologies, and on the other hand, which are the main reasons for the non-adoption, for the non-adopters of these technologies. So reduction of energy cost is by far the most important motivation. Reduction of environmental impact was also important, but as a secondary reason. Price also for those who sell energy to external consumers. Compliance with regulations, other financial incentives, and finally, we had some answers such as being an innovator or being a good steward of the countryside. On the other hand, non-adopters said that affordability, meaning the high upfront cost, installation cost, were the most important reason for the non-adoption. Also, the fact that they believe that the best fitting technology tailored to the farm is not available yet, or the non-compatibility with farms' existing technology. Also, complicated procedures were mentioned as important. For example, slow procedures for licensing or permissions, lack of time to search, and small farm size. It's important to notice that 2 out of 3 renewable energy adopters said that a specific subsidy gave them the opportunity to invest. On the other hand, only 1 out of 3 energy efficiency adopters said that they received such a related subsidy for investing in this technology. So, most important source of information that non-adopters would trust before they decide to buy or use FEFTs were a cost-benefit model tailored to the farm, demonstrations, conversations with advisors, mainly with official contacts, results on other farms, and see other farmers use these technologies. Also, non-adopters claim that a subsidy combined with relevant training would be a good incentive for adoption. Finally, moving to the soil carbon sequestration practices, the main motivation of the farmers who used these practices was a reduction of environmental impact of farming, followed by a reduction of energy costs. They try to be good stewards of the countryside. Also, the utilization of farm byproducts, for example, for farms that they already had manure because they had the livestock and they combined it with open field production. On the other hand, for the non-user, the main reason for the non-use was that the perception that the best fitting practice tailored to the farm is not available, the compatibility of practices with the farm, small farm size, affordability, the perception of no future benefits out of the use of these practices, complicated procedures, and lack of time. And here also it's interesting to notice that users of these practices, they did not receive subsidies for applying such practices, the majority of them. So adopters and non-adopters of thefts had some statistical important differences in some specific factors. So adopters, firstly, in farmer characteristics, adopters, they tend to have better education, general and agricultural, better digital skills, and were more frequent users of internet. They were full-time farmers, more satisfied from farming. They had less years of experience in farming, meaning that this might be resistant to change for the non-adopters. It was more possible to have identified a successor, participate more in collectivities. They visit agricultural fairs more often, or demonstration, or field days or exhibitions. And overall, they were found to be more innovative. They were keener to experiment, and they were not afraid of taking risks. Also, they tend to differ in farm characteristics. They were bigger farms and non-family ones. They had more added value activities, such as packaging or processing or agritourism activities. And some of these activities might be more energy consuming. They participate more in CAP Pillar 2 projects, such as farm modernization schemes. And only for energy efficiency technologies, they had differences in production systems, meaning that we found more adopters in mixed systems than livestock than plant production. Finally, for the soil carbon sequestration practices, more or less we had similar trends, but adopters were younger in this case. So also farmers were asked about the main incentives they would like to see in future policies in order to adopt thefts. So the majority of them asked for financial support in the form of subsidies or grants that will make the initial capital investment viable. Also, 1 out of 4 of them asks for less bureaucracy, for faster and less complicated procedures, for better policies. Policies need to be reliable and in the long term. For accurate and reliable information, this could be done by demonstrations in real farm conditions with peer-to-peer experiences exchange and cost-benefit analysis, and for training. It's important to mention that financial support is crucial for small and medium farms. So as mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we also conducted expert interviews. Experts believe that policies are extremely important, and these are the characteristics of the policy mix. So policies need to be reliable in the long term. If they change often, this creates insecurity to farmers. They need to provide sufficient financial incentives so the investment will prove profitable. They need to take care of the dissemination of reliable information and to avoid cumbersome procedures. So experts and farmers agree that the main driver for adopting these technologies is economic advantage, either by the reduction of energy cost or by the profit increase by selling energy to external consumers. The main barrier is the high upfront cost, plus the fact that this, depending on the technology that we are going to use, these are long-term investments, so the payback period might take a long time. So there is a need to financially support farmers, especially medium and small ones, to provide, for example, subsidies and combined with the relevant training, which is very, very important. So overall, there are some needs to be addressed. The main results of this research, firstly, is the financial ones. Farmers need to be supported. I'm not talking only about subsidies and grants. This was the most important request by farmers, but also I'm talking about financial tools, better prices for farmers' products, anything that can make someone have the financial ability to invest in technologies. It's important to help small and medium farms. Second is the bureaucracy issue, to have faster and less complicated procedures, policies to be reliable in the long term and to take into account the real farmers' needs. It's important to provide reliable information and education to farmers through test and demonstration in real farm conditions and peer-to-peer experiences exchange, and to provide targeted advisory and cost-benefit analysis. And finally, it's important to, in some of these countries represented in this questionnaire, the AKIS network, AKIS is the acronym for Agricultural Knowledge and Innovation System, is not very well connected, meaning that there is a gap between research, industry, advisory, and farmers, and these actors need to collaborate more, and we need to try to bridge this gap. So this is my final slide. Thank you. So I give the floor to next presenter.
Okay, thank you, Vasiliki. We have 3 questions. The one question is for Konstantinos. You could find it on the chat. Please approach this. Just one question from Alea Scoville for both of you, I think for Paris and Vasiliki. What is the percentage of adopters, non-adopters? If you could give the feedback quickly.
Yes, so as I told before, we try to have 50% of adopters and 50% of non-adopters. This was more difficult to find in some countries because they are more technologically, they have more adopters, but it was also part of the grant agreement to have equal numbers. Okay, thank you for this feedback. Then I give the floor for Ilse Lennertz from HyPErFarm and his team from the project. So Ilse, please share the screen with your presentation.
Yes, I thought Pakriti would share, but okay. Yes, there it is. So good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to present to you our HyPErFarm project. I will give a short overview of the project, and I will then give the floor to Gabriele and Yanis, who will give you a flavor of what they're doing within our HyPErFarm project. So as a general information, we have our HyPErFarm project is an innovation action. The acronym HyPErFarm stands for Hydrogen and Photovoltaic Electrification on Farm. Our project started in November 2020 and will last for 48 months. The budget that we received from the Commission is about 5.5 million euros. Our consortium partners, I think Patricky, you can go to the next slide. We have 13 partners in our project, coming from 4 different European countries. They're located in the middle of Europe and also the northern of Europe. We set up the project taking into account a multi-actor approach. So we have partners, research partners on board, but also industrial partners and farmers associations. An overview of the partners you can see here, but you can also go to our website hyperfarm.eu to have more information about the project and also the different partners that participate. Then in brief, the objective of our project is to demonstrate effective decarbonization of farms by the concept of agrivoltaics, so producing solar energy while maintaining the crop yield underneath the panels. The general aim of our project is to provide a show and business case for farmers to facilitate implementation of renewable energy on farm. And this renewable energy is both produced and also locally deployed on farm. And it consists of electricity production, but also the production of hydrogen through hydrogen production panels. Then the concept of agrivoltaics is demonstrated on 3 different national sites. So one in Belgium, one in Germany, and one in Denmark. The concept that is demonstrated has some common features that are shared amongst the 3 sites, but also each site has their own focus. So at the end, there will be a comparative study over the sites, but also some specific output coming from the 3 different demonstration sites. In brief, HyPErFarm is focusing on 4 key innovations. First one is to develop optimized agrivoltaic systems to guarantee sustained or even advanced crop production. Secondly, we want to implement hydrogen production and usage in a cost-effective way on farm. And then thirdly, we want to deploy local electricity production towards electrification of farm operations on a daily basis. This can be implemented by using electronic robotics, but also intelligent climate control and electronically driven pyrolysis. From this part of the key innovations, Yannis will give a short flavor of the research on the pyrolysis section that he is working on. Then finally, the final goal is to demonstrate a business case and public acceptability of producing solar-based energy sources locally on farm. So we will assess the legal but also the social barriers that are still living today. And that will be presented shortly by Gabriella, who will highlight the activities of the last year. And I think that was my last slide, so I would like to give the floor to Gabrielle to give you a short introduction.
Thank you, Ilse.
Thank you very much, Ilse, and thank you, Prakriti, in the background. Yes, hi everybody. I'm from Aarhus University in Denmark, and I'm going to talk about how agrivoltaic is perceived by stakeholders. Please, next slide. This is just in general, we are kind of an add-on to all the real stuff, to all the pilots that are taking place. We want to consider over all 3 countries, Belgium, Denmark, and Germany, how do different stakeholders, but also specifically farmers, the public or consumers, perceive agrivoltaic. Next slide, please. And what I'm talking today is specifically what we did at the beginning last year. We did first qualitative studies. So later on, we will also do surveys, as the project before was interestingly showing what one can get out of it. But with agrivoltaic, that is really something that is not known out there by most people. Even also farmers, we wanted to explore more, and that you normally use qualitative methods for. So we interviewed, in this case, 27 people from very different areas, researchers from the project, farmers, farmer organizations, municipalities, journalists, did I mention politicians? So quite a bunch of people with very different levels of knowledge. Next slide, please. And it's not like nobody did that before. Here's one of the papers I can highlight where somebody looked at the acceptance of agrivoltaic. And it is a very interesting paper. I can recommend it. But what I'm using it today for is as to show you my first reaction. As an output, they had 5 or 6 of these system pictures, how to call them. And I was like, okay, wow, so what is happening if I press this button or that? So I just want to give you the impression that I had, this is complicated, and how to communicate something like that to people, how make it of a bit more maybe practical use. And this is how we got inspired to do something specific with our interviews that we have not done before. And this is what I'm going to show you today. Next slide, please. So maybe you have seen or heard about personas before. This is an example. If you just Google the word persona on the internet, you will get a lot of these. And this is one from a coffee shop that is wants to know, how does my customer look like? What is this person caring about in regards to my product? So coffee. And I specifically like this one because it's about a PhD student who needs coffee and wants to work without distractions. But what I'm actually showing you are typical elements of a persona. It is not a real person. It is a fictitious character. This person does not exist. This is just a picture with a small CV with what drives this person to drink coffee. What does she not like about it? And this coffee shop might have a few of them because it's about designing the product and the place in a way that it's way more accepted by their favorite consumers. And next slide, please. So what I said is already a bit background. It's a fictitious character. So this is not a person that I, for example, in my interview talked to. I will soon introduce you to. And these personas are used, as I told you before, in marketing, but are actually stemming from user experience designs. And they look at the user's needs, desires, skills. They focus on those. And what they want to avoid by doing that is they want to avoid failure in the product development process early on. So this is specifically suitable for something like agrivoltaic that is not so much known yet out there and is still to be developed. So we are hoping that by providing a few personas from our interviews, we show early on how how product developers, project managers, research teams, or policymakers could easily and kind of, as you saw, very attractively in very dense information, look at what people care about regarding their project to increase acceptance or rejection of the product adoption. So we think it's a very appealing way also for simply knowledge dissemination. Next slide, please. And this is how we did it. Prakriti, please just go through it so we see the whole slide at once. That's easier. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. So what we did is, and you see the boxes get smaller and smaller, that just simply means that information was more and more dense. From the 27 interviews, we first wrote summaries of each of them, and then we started to somehow put the elements that were coming out of the data that we found, the different themes, to something that made a fictitious character and would represent specific wishes, desires, and needs of people who might be stakeholders of agrivoltaic. And the last 4 points on the slide just show you that we did quite a lot of quality assurance. We are not finalized yet. This is in the middle of actually almost done. So I just got feedback from the devil's advocate I have to work in, and we are looking for some expert feedback from our project to make sure that what we write about as not being experts on agrivoltaic also makes sense. So now I proudly present you our persona. Prakriti, thank you. So this is one of the 6 that we designed. And you see, this is not a real character. There is a small CV. She's called Ines Persona, who she is. There is a picture people can relate to. It's visually supposed to be appealing. There is a teaser as like she talks to you with a citation of her, and then her motivations are described as well as specifically related to agrivoltaic. What would be her goals to reach in general? What kind of needs would she have according to that innovation? And what would frustrate her? Next slide, please. This is my last slide where I just want to show you that it's really meant to be attractive to look at and to get involved with it. So people very briefly can get a glimpse of what is it people care about? What is it what is their opinion on it? And instead of showing you all the 6 slides, I made this overview. So you get an impression on it. And we really hope that we can, by this, this is my last sentence, maybe give you an idea how interview data or also other data can be also used. Maybe we can hear that you did similar stuff and get inspired by you, or hear and get questions critically about this, because we have not finalized them yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriele. Now is the turn for Yanis.
Yes, hello everyone. I will present to you some first results from greenhouse trials we conduct in this project on biochar-based fertilization. Biochar is in this project a side aspect beside hydrogen generation and agrivoltaics. And thank you, Pratiki. And at first, what is biochar itself? Biochar is produced by heating biomass under oxygen-free conditions up to 600 or 900 degrees. And what you obtain from this process is a carbon-rich char. As you can see in the right image, the char under the microscope looks very porous and has a lot of pores that remain from the plant itself, that the plant used to transport water. And also during pyrolysis, additional pores are created in the biochar. And this helps the biochar to act as a sponge in the soil when it is applied to the soil. So for example, water can be stored in the biochar, and also nutrients that are dissolved in water can be stored in biochar. And when you apply biochar to the soil, it is considered as a creation of a long-term carbon sink, because the biochar is very stable in soil. So it is a kind of building up terrestrial carbon sinks directly on the farm. And as I said, biochar is highly porous, and therefore you can mix it with liquid fertilizers to obtain a biochar-based fertilizer, and then bring this fertilizer to your crops to obtain a more sustainable fertilization approach, because the nutrient leaching is reduced in soil. So therefore you can obtain a higher nutrient use efficiency by the plants. You can go to the next slide, where I present the first setup of our greenhouse trial last year. We conducted on biochar-based fertilization with our white cabbage plants. We tested 2 different root zone amendments of biochar. As you can see on the left, we mixed biochar with the soil in the pot to have a biochar soil mix, or we amended biochar as a hotspot below the seedling. And we also tested, as you can see on the right, 2 different nitrogen fertilization approaches. At the first approach, that was mixing the pure biochar with the soil and adding nitrogen fertilizer as a top dress fertilizer, versus a nitrogen enhanced biochar, which represents a mixture of fertilizer and biochar. And our results indicate that when a nitrogen enhanced biochar is placed as a hotspot below the seedling, the head yield of the white cabbage plants could be increased by a maximum of 21% compared to the pots without biochar and with the same amount of nutrients. So that was a really promising result, which we did not we didn't think that we will have such good results, because we already used a nutrient-rich silt loam soil, so a really fertile soil. And normally in these soils, biochar cannot have such great effects. So you can go to the next slide, and we are now looking forward to the upcoming field trials, where we try to transfer the results from the greenhouse. A picture of our greenhouse is presented on the left to field scale. And these field trials will start in autumn this year in Bavaria in Germany, where we will have also white cabbage planted, but also potato and winter wheat and winter barley. This is my last slide, and I'm happy to discuss this topic later on with you.
Thank you, Yanis, for your part of the presentation. Thank you all of your team from HyPErFarm to do it. Presentation of the project. Now is the turn of the AgroBioHeat. Michalis Alexandros, the turn is yours. So I'm going to send live your part. Yes, I think we could see. So please start it.
Yeah. Greetings from me as well. I'm going to present you the AgroBioHeat project and the use of agrobiomass for heat, its potential in Europe, and the state-of-the-art technologies for heat production. So a few words from where I'm coming from. I'm working in CERT, Center for Research and Technology Laws, which is a research organization, a non-profit legal entity under private law, supervised by the General Secretariat for Research and Innovation of the Greek Ministry. And we are more, CERT occupies more than 1,000 employees. We have 5 departments. I'm coming from SPERI, the Chemical Process and Energy Resource Institute, mainly deals with bioenergy, solid biofuels and biofuels in general, biorefineries and etc., and innovative technologies and energy systems. And okay, I will go ahead to the presentation content. First, I will give you an overview of what is agrobiomass and its potential. I will present you in brief the AgroBioHeat project and some results on the state-of-the-art combustion technologies of agrobiomass. So to be in the same page, what we mean by agrobiomass, it derives from, let's say, agricultural residues, such as herbaceous residues like straw or maize residues, or it can be a woody residues such as prunings or plantation removal biomass. It can either derive from agro-industries as byproducts, mainly from when, let's say, in the refineries that extract, let's say, sunflower oil. The rest can be used. The rest, it's the byproduct is sunflower husk, and it can be used as a byproduct, or olive stones or olive cake, and or kernels from fruits like peach. Also, another category is the energy crops, such as miscanthus and switchgrass, or short rotation copies, or poplar and willow. Agrobiomass can be traded in different forms based on its logistics step and the needs of its users. So it can be traded either in bales, in chips or hog fuel, in pellets or briquettes, or in granular materials like the exhausted olive cake or olive stones. Regarding the European potential of agrobiomass for the herbaceous agricultural residues, it can be estimated around 170 million tons, dry tons, as a technical potential, mainly in Central European countries and Eastern and Northern European countries. Regarding agricultural prunings, most of them can be found in the Mediterranean countries, like olive prunings, and with a potential technical potential of around 13 million tons of dry material. Regarding the agro-industrial residues, it's more difficult to have an estimation. It's also in each country it's different, depending on the adoption of such residues. However, for example, in Spain, there is an amount of 1.2 million tons of exhausted olive cake in the market. Regarding the energy crops, currently in Europe, there are 120,000 hectares of energy crops, and still increasing. However, what is being done with with some of the such agrobiomass, it's for example, the stubbles are burning and remain untapped. From where I'm coming from, and mostly in the Mediterranean countries, prunings like olive prunings or vine prunings are burnt in the field. However, they can be exploited towards bioenergy. And for instance, here is some quick information about the Danish model with the exploitation of straw, where straw is responsible for 10% of the rice production of Denmark. And they have an annual production of around 5.5 million tons per year, where around 3.5 are exploited towards energy purposes and agricultural purposes. Mainly straw is used for heating in farms, in district heating systems, CHP units, and large-scale power generation units. Regarding the agro-industrial residues, as I mentioned before, mostly in the Mediterranean countries, these are olive stones and exhausted olive cakes. In Eastern Europe, such agrobiomass are sunflower husks, and in some smaller local producers in Europe, it can be nut shells and fruit stones. Mainly what happens with this agrobiomass, they are self-consumed firstly in the industries itself for the production of process heat, and what's left are available to go in the market for a wide range of application, like domestic heating, greenhouses, industrial heat, and etc. Of course. Also, some of these agro-industrial residues and the high quality assortments for small scale heating applications can be certified under some labels like biomass food label. Regarding the agrobiomass use, there are also some success cases available in Europe where stakeholders, pioneers that exploit the local agrobiomass resources. So this can be a few hundred, a few thousand tons per year for its success case, and it can be either production of agrobiomass pellets or briquettes, self-consumption of agrobiomass for heat, or small district heating systems, or even small power plants. So you can see some success cases in this slide very briefly. From in the down left corner, this is 1 megawatt gasifier in Greece. That produces power that uses wood chips from peach tree plantation removals. Also, next to it, you can see a German success case where they use a boiler using fen biomass from Paleolithic culture for district heating, and next to it, it's fuses. It's a 1 megawatt electric biomass power plant that it's exclusively fed with olive tree prunings. The other photograph, I'll show you the case. I'll show you the next slides. So here you can see very briefly what about the cost of the agrobiomass and its cost competitiveness. Also, you can see several the fuel prices and also several fuel prices. You can see that electricity and fossil fuels are. You can see the cost has an increasing trend and several fluctuations in the price, whereas biomass fuels have a more stable trend and with not so much fluctuations. And you can see in the end. The cost of the agrobiomass fuels, depending, of course, of its what agrobiomass fuel we are talking about. For example, olive pits are a bit more expensive and have a higher price, but is of higher fuel quality. So the final heating cost, of course, depends on the efficiency of the installation, but we have to have in mind that the exploitation of such agrobiomass fuels and alternative biomass fuels perhaps they have a low heating cost. However, appropriate technologies are needed to deal with their challenges. Regarding AgroBioHeat now, AgroBioHeat is a CSA project, CERT coordinated. It's around 3 million budget. Also, it ends in June. It got the deadline was extended. It ends in this June, and its aim is to support the European rural decarbonization through market uptake of agrobiomass heating solutions. There are several countries participating with different partners along Europe. And what has happened in AgroBioHeat so far? There are, of course, there have been performed some field visits to success cases, such as in Villafranca del Penedes, where is a case where vineyard prunings are used for heat production in a discrete heating unit with a biomass boiler of 500 kilowatt, and produce heat for these buildings, the connected buildings. And also there was a site visit to a winery, Familia Torres, which has a 2.6 megawatt biomass boiler that consumes vineyard prunings and forest wood chips for covering the demands of the cooling and heating demands of the winery. Of course, further information you can find in the links. Also, due to the situation, virtual visits are also performed. Here is an upcoming virtual visit in the Romanian AgroBioHeat facilities that is scheduled in April the 29th. You can register in the following links. I will have them and also at the end of the slide. And yeah, please feel free to join and register for the virtual visits. Also in the AgroBioHeat project, we developed a tool, the AgroBiomass Observatory. As the name implies, it's we have imported some heating cases using agrobiomass, more than 680 from Europe. And also, apart from agrobiomass heating cases, we have around 50 other cases of agrobiomass use, such as CHP or large-scale heating. Also, there is also equipment manufacturers and also ESCO and installers, and also, of course, agrobiomass fuel suppliers. This observatory is continuously updated, and you can visit it in the link. Also, in the AgroBioHeat project, what's also done, it's we developed some guides for several agrobiomass feedstocks towards the generation of bioenergy. Until now, 2 guides have been uploaded, straw to energy and maize residues to energy, and also agro-industrial residues to energy guide is in the making. It will be available in the following period. Also, fact sheets are available, which are one-page fact sheets regarding where there are highlights regarding state-of-the-art combustion systems or information about several agrobiomass feedstocks. All of them, again, you can find them in the links attached. Also, agrobiomass, apart from the several webinars that organizes and participates regarding the agrobiomass use for heating. The AgroBioHeat also hosts some matchmaking events. Already we have organized 2 matchmaking events. Now a third one is coming on May the 11th. Again, you can register for that event, where interested stakeholders in agrobiomass participate, or people already using agrobiomass or want to start engaging agrobiomass can participate. And it's In this event, the interested stakeholder arrange one-on-one meetings and they speak about the use of agrobiomass for heat. So in the last part of the presentation, I'll speak about the state-of-the-art agrobiomass combustion technologies. First, there are two main technologies for exploiting agrobiomass. That's the moving rate technology, which are widely deployed and there are numerous manufacturers and models. It can start from 30 kilowatt to 150 megawatt capacities, and it uses conventional air staging. For the particle emissions abatement, it uses secondary measures such as back filters or ESPs for further reduction. And for the NOx emissions, mainly they use primary measures, and also secondary measures may apply for capacities above 1 megawatt scale. Another concept that's used is the gasification concept using extreme air staging, which is a more innovative concept currently offered by limited manufacturers. It goes from little kilowatts to 20 megawatts. And here there are lower emissions, and the secondary measures are not needed. And regarding the NOx emissions, they're dealt first with primary measures, and the NOx emissions are reduced further compared to grate-fired systems. Regarding the use of agrobiomass, there are some challenges. When combusted, of course, different kind of agrobiomass can present different challenges, and there are solutions, but always it's about the cost of these solutions and if it makes sense to use them. Of course, for larger applications, there are tailor-made solutions and more economic solutions. And but the key is that a good boiler design will save a lot of money. Here's a table. I think I'm over my time, so I'm very briefly present that there are some potential challenges when combusting agrobiomass, and the corresponding solutions. So I won't go deep inside it, but some problems are the high ash content of the fuels, of the sulfur and nitrogen content and chlorine content of the biomass fuels that lead to high SOx and NOx emissions. But this can be dealt with primary measures and secondary measures, like lime injection for SOx emissions or selective non-catalytic reduction, such solutions. Or also ash melting temperature, low ash and shrinkage starting temperature in the ash that causes slagging and clinker formation that could be dealt with water-cooled grate and flue gas recirculation below the grate. Of course, also another challenge is the feeding of the biomass to the boiler due to the inhomogeneity of the biomass fuels. The solution here is a good design of the fuel handling and the pretreatment system. So another thing that we saw in AgroBioHeat is there were made some laboratory tests with residential boilers using several agrobiomass fuels, and here you can see some results from these tests. You can see the eco-design emission limits as a benchmark, where we compare the emissions, and also we tested 2 boilers. The first one is based on the innovative extremer staging concept, a more innovative boiler, and the second one is a boiler based on moving rate technology with conventional air staging, and which was coupled with ESP filters. As you can see, the NOx emissions are over the limit for both boilers. Also the innovative the extreme staging boiler did well with the TSP, with the total suspended percolates, whereas the boiler with the moving rate, although it went over the limits with an ESP filter, it complied with the limits of TSP. In all tests, the boiler efficiencies ranged between 87% to 94%. And you can find also the dexing measurements for miscanthus were well below the limits based on the German regulations. For further details, of course, there are published papers that you can see more on the test results of these combustion tests. As a very brief conclusions for this test, we saw that the agrobiofuels that were tested complied with the Econ Design Regulation limits for CO, OGC, and TSP emissions, and by using state-of-the-art residential biomass boilers. Of course, the elevated nitrogen content found in the fuel, in the agrobiomass fuels, of course, leads to high NOx emissions that go over the eco-design limit. However, this we can reach these limits in the MCP directives. These medium combustion plant directives for capacity for plants that's more than 1 megawatt until 50. And additional tests have been made with other small-scale boilers with agrobiomass fuel assortments. And through AgroBioHeat, we propose some. It's under preparation that the project proposes some agrobiomass emission limits for the review of the Eco Design Regulation. Finally, some final remarks about agrobiomass. Agrobiomass represent a major untapped renewable energy potential and can play a significant role in the decarbonization of the European rural heating system. There are several success cases of agrobiomass to energy, but they are, of course, local, and it's a case-by-case situation. Agrobiomass fuel costs can be cheaper than most other options, but of course they need specific technologies for effective utilization. Also, efficiency in emissions during agrobiomass combustion can be comparable with woody biomass combustion, and also tailored policy instruments, of course, can promote agrobiomass to energy market uptake. To all this, the AgroBioHeat supports all these activities and aims to take off the sector of agrobiomass use for heating appliances. And this is the final slide. Thank you for your attention, and also just wanted to highlight again that, for the upcoming events in AgroBioHeat project. So as we said before, the virtual site visits in the 29th of April that you can register in the link, and also you can apply for the webinar and the matchmaking event on the 11th of May. Thank you.
Thank you, Michalis, for this detailed presentation of AgroBioHeat. You raised the interest of the attendees. There are 2 questions. Maybe I will read just one, and at the end of the webinar, you will give the reply for the other. The question from Agnieszka Mnich: is there a difference in using forest biomass and material from crops for heating purposes? if you could give quickly feedback, please.
Yeah, it's now this is based also on the fuel properties of its fuel. Perhaps the fuel, let's say the fuels found in agriculture perhaps have some different elements, like let's say in the prunix we saw that there is more copper due to the spraying of copper in the plants, in the olives. So perhaps some values are different, but with the right pretreatment and the right anti-pollution systems and the right technology, everything can be used.
Okay, thank you, Michalis, for this reply. At the end, we will have the chance to discuss more. Now is the turn of Dimitros Tiris to give the presentation for Rest for Life project. Dimitris, the floor is yours. I'm going to send to the stream the presentation. Please put the presentation mode, and you could start it.
Okay, so is it displayed in presentation mode?
I don't think so. We could see the presentation, but it's still in PowerPoint view.
Okay.
Now it's okay. Now it's okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. So I will give you a brief overview of Rest for Life project and some of the first results and the interventions that we are doing in our pilot farms. So, as an introduction, it turned out that livestock farming is one of the most energy-consuming subsectors of modern agriculture, and it is basically based on fossil fuels to cover the strongly diversified energy needs in electricity and thermal energy. So it turns out that in order to achieve a more sustainable livestock production and to defossilize its energy needs is a crucial aspect within European Union. So this is how Rest for Life was born. Rest for Life is a Horizon 2020 project that began on October 2020, and it will be concluded on September 2024. In this, 17 partners from 8 EU countries participate, from Greece, Belgium, Italy, Germany, Denmark, France, Sweden, and Cyprus. Rest for Life Consortium includes 8 universities and research centers, 6 small and medium enterprises, 1 commercial farm, and 2 international associations. The project coordination is undertaken by the Agricultural University of Athens. So, what Rest for Life proposes is the combination of adapted renewable energy sources solutions, as well as standard solutions and smart control, in order to achieve the 100% replacement of fossil energy in intensive livestock farming sector. And this combination of technologies and energy efficiency solutions will be installed and evaluated in 4 livestock farms across EU. These farms host egg-laying hens, swine, and dairy cattle. So we can say that our general approach is based on 4 main pillars. As we saw before, on renewable energy sources solution and machinery and adaptation, combined with commercial technologies. These pilot systems will be designed and installed and tested, and a multi-level assessment of these interventions will take place. Of course, this will be what we are trying also to achieve is the replicability of these solutions, as well as the impact generation across the EU livestock sector. Hopefully, this will give us the opportunity to introduce to the market integrated, cost-effective and case-sensitive solutions. Let's now take a deeper look in the technologies that are going to be implemented. The modular heat pump will be one of our core interventions in the livestock facilities, combined with thermal photovoltaics for generation of electricity and heat. The biogas to biomethane upgrading, biomethane that will be will also fuel a retrofitted tractor that was run previously on diesel. All these systems will be combined, will communicate through a smart control system, and of course, because we try to achieve case-specific solutions, we will make use of commercial standard renewable energy sources solutions as well. As I said before, this demonstration will take place in 4 different farms. So let's have a look in each one of them. The first one is an experimental egg production poultry farm in Agricultural University of Athens. The second one is a commercial swine farm in Italy. The third, an experimental swine farm in Belgium. And last but not least, an experimental dairy cattle farm in Germany. The farm, the egg production farm here in Greece, is a 2-space building that hosts 450 pullets and 400 hens approximately. It worked on mechanical ventilation for the removal of thermal loads and with thermal lamps for the pullets. The interventions that we were planning is the installation of heat pump, photovoltaics, LEDs, and smart control. The main goal of these interventions is to cover 100% of the farm's energy needs through the photovoltaics production, and to regulate as well as good as possible, as precise as possible, the indoor environment with the heat pump. Regarding the interventions, so far, a renovation took place from tiles to roof. The ventilation system is almost ready. In the next month is going to be combined with the heat pump, and photovoltaics are up and running, producing electricity. Right now we are in the process of installing LEDs, and we are testing our measures of the environmental sensors. In Italy, in Golinelli farm, which is a large commercial swine farm, we will make some interventions in just 2 of the farm building, a nursery barn and a hog barn. There is a large number of animals hosted in this facility. Here we will install heat pump, thermal photovoltaics, geothermal energy storage, smart control, and some miscellaneous energy efficiency measures. Here the main goals is the replacement of an LPG boiler with a heat pump to cover the thermal energy needs of one of the buildings. And what we are trying to achieve is to increase the heat pump COP, utilizing the hot water of thermal photovoltaics and geothermal storage. In the other building, the main intervention has to do with the installation of external wall insulation, because it is a really old one, old building. And up until now, the works that we have several preparatory works. In the next week, we will have the first results of a heat response test in order to have a better idea of how geothermal storage could be utilized. Well, the weather station is up and running, and the sensors will be environmental sensors and energy meters will be installed by the end of next month. And we are trying to figure out what is the best way to proceed with, regarding the building insulation. In Belgium, we have an experimental swine farm of Ilvo. It is also a big building, two interconnected buildings, where several kinds of several animals are hosted, sows, piglets, and fattening pigs. There is a gas heater and mechanical ventilation for regulation of indoor environment. There is no cooling system. The plant interventions include 2 heat pumps, one high temperature for space heating and domestic hot water, and the other one low temperature for the underfloor floor heating. Thermal photovoltaics will be also utilized, as well as smart control systems. Because we are talking about a very large building, our goal is to cover as much of the energy needs of the whole farm, utilizing PVTs, energy production, and the heat pump. Right now, most of the sensors, energy meters, and data loggers, etc., have been installed, and we are in the process of finalizing the designs of the heat pumps that will be connected with the thermal photovoltaics. At last, we have the experimental dairy cattle farm of LVAT in Germany. Also a very large facility. We have three barns that in which we will intervene: the main barn, the welfare barn, and the young cattle barn. Right now, there is an operational biogas CHP plant in the facility, and milk cooling systems that recover heat. The main interventions of Reservoir Life include the upgrading of biogas to biomethane, as well as the biomethane tractor mentioned also earlier, the installation of thermal photovoltaics, smart control, and also the use of an electric tractor. What we are trying to do is to utilize the produced biomethane and PVT production to reduce as much as possible the energy consumption of the whole farm. The biomethane upgrading unit is designed, and during the next months, preparatory works will begin for its installation. The biomethane tractor is almost fully converted. Hopefully around summer it will be also transported back to the farm. And right now we're in the process of installing weather stations and environmental sensors and energy meters. So some of the first results, of course, the main results of the project will be available during the next months, where the installations and the measurements will take place. But we had to be prepared, so in order to design efficiently design our systems, a literature review of the thermal comfort assessment of livestock and its impact on production took place for all the hosted animals in the farms, for dairy cattle, swine, and laying hens. That was the first part of the literature, the preparatory work, let's say. The other one had to do with the analysis of energy demand and consumption, as well as the renewable energy sources availability in typical livestock farms, as the ones that participate in our project. You can see that the available data of the farms were analyzed. We try to see what are the energy needs in terms of electricity, natural gas consumption, etc. That was relatively easy in some of the farms. In others, we had to run some simulations and make some assumptions to see the actual needs. These results and relevant deliverables will be updated during the next months, where we are planning to actually measure the consumption, the real consumption in these farms. And as was mentioned before, this work contributed to the publication of a review article together with the AgroFossilFree project regarding the energy use in the livestock sector. Now, taking a step back and looking at the big picture, what we are trying what we would like to achieve by the end of the project is to have in our disposal advanced and cost-effective technologies for the livestock sector that will ensure the sustainability of farms operation, providing superior thermal comfort of the hosted animals. This could lead to increased productivity with the minimum climate change impact, and hopefully will create forward knowledge in the renewable energy sources and the livestock sector. And hopefully, during these difficult times, we could contribute to the job growth and competitiveness of EU livestock industry and the improvement of our quality of life. That's all from my side. I will try to be as quick as possible. For any information, questions, you can contact us directly and follow us on several social media. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitrios, for nice presentation of your project. We have two technical questions from Anonymous. I will read both of them for you. The heat pump was developed in your project, or is the system based on commercial device? And the second one from the other Anonymous, is heat pump air-to-air device? Did you measure an seasonal COP, coefficient of performance, I suppose? So please give the feedback.
Yes, the heat pump designs are not based on commercial units, are developed for the purpose of the project, and actually are designed for the needs of each farm. There will be both to air and to water. For example, they will be used for different to cover different energy needs. For example, in our farm in Greece, they will regulate the indoor environment. In the other farms, they will be used mostly for hot water consumption, for space heating and cooling.
Okay, thank you, Dimitris. I think enough feedback for the people who was interested on it. Now is the turn of Serena Danesi to give the speech on the TheGreeFa project. So I'm going to send to the stream, and you could start, Serena, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will give you an overview about our project, TheGreeFa, and then my colleague Martin from Watergy in Germany will present one of our demonstrators. So TheGreeFa means thermochemical fluid in greenhouse farming. Then I will explain you better what does it mean. The scope of our project is to reduce the energy consumption in greenhouse farming. So we are concentrating on the greenhouse farming, and we do that in different way. The first of that, we use the latent heat of a humid air, and we try also to limit the thermal loss, so that we have in greenhouse through ventilation. And another very good point, and we will explain later, is that we want also to recover water from the humidity. And this is possible while we use some desiccant thermochemical fluid, and this desiccant can store the energy from sun or from a low temperature heat source, and this storage can be also seasonal, so we don't have thermal losses. Another advantage of this technology is that it's quite easy, so quite simple, and we don't have complicated component, and we can use a plastic component that are also quite cheap. And so I repeat, we can store the energy for a long time and with a very high energy density. How does it work? This is a picture that we have from a previous project, HDSnet, and the concept is the same. So we use desiccant, the aerosol solution with property to absorb the water. That means absorb the humidity. When we see on the right side, the humidity is absorbed, heat is released, and we use this heat, or we can use this heat to heat our greenhouse. Then during the absorption, what does happen? This whole solution is diluted, so cannot absorb any more humidity. We can store this fluid for a long time, and when we have an energy source available, for example sun, we can regenerate this. So the regeneration is the same process, but on the other way. So water is released from the soil solution, and it absorbed from dry air. To do that, we need a specific equilibrium between air and soil solution, and we can create this through energy, through thermal energy, but at low temperature. For example, sun, so sun energy. That means we use sun energy or residual heat, so low temperature energy, to regenerate the soil solution, and this energy will release when the soil solution absorb humidity. So we have a different demonstrator. The first of this demonstrator is in Switzerland, in a greenhouse of flower, and here we want to demonstrate seasonal storage. And also we want to limit the energy loss through ventilation. Normally on the left you have a housework, normally a normal greenhouse, so you have to put water, you have to to heat the greenhouse, but to regulate the humidity you open the window, so you have a lot of thermal loss. When we use our system with absorption, what happens? The transpiration of the plant produces humidity, and this humidity is absorbed from our salt solution, and at the same time heat is released. And we can also gain some water. If we not open the window, that means we need in any case less energy, and part of this energy is coming from the absorption process. So we reduce the total energy and we recover some energy that otherwise is lost. So I can skip this, it's the same. And so I give the floor to Martin. And so he has also precursor project, so he can illustrate what is done and what he will do. So thank you, Martin.
Thank you,
Okay.
Serena, for it. Indeed, Martin Buchholz, which give from Watergy, is going to give some technical details on the TheGreeFa. So Martin, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I keep with Serena's presentation, so
okay,
you can directly continue. So the second part of the project is working on the idea of a closed greenhouse, and the main focus is not energy but is on water. So the idea to have a closed environment where all the weather which you normally have in an atmosphere is going on within the enclosure, and that especially means that we have evaporation from the plants. That's normal. That's the way a greenhouse is cooled as well. But we are not releasing the energy, but we are condensing it. As we are not releasing the water vapor, but we are condensing it back. And we have a precursor project. It's already some 15 years ago. We did this just by cooling. So we had a big heat exchanger in the cooling tower. You see on the right top of the illustration, where we had a cool surface and where we just condensed the water. But there was a normal pipe bundle heat exchanger. So between the cooling water and the air, there was always a plastic tube. And now with the desiccant system, which we are working here in this project, we want to have a direct contact between the cooling fluid, which in this case is not water, but is the salt solution, the concentrated salt solution. And the water is absorbed into the solution. And the idea is that with the regeneration process, which should work through the night, we can get back this water and have the condensation in the cold period of the day, in the night, for condensation. Next slide.
A moment, one more. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the main objectives. We work on that. So we have climate control. So if you close a greenhouse, it's overheating. So we have to do everything to keep the temperature on a certain, below a certain level, and this is not so easy. So it's kind of effort, and we try to do this by storing heat in the soil and storing heat in the desiccant solution. We use, as I told you, the water recovery based on evapocondensation. That's clear. And for the crop production, we have some interesting aspects here, because if you close the atmosphere, you can also increase the CO2 without losing it. So even in a semi-closed greenhouse, or where you try to economize the CO2. You always lose some of it to the outside by airflow. And in the closed system, you can go to very high levels of CO2 without losing it. So we think about 1000 ppm, 2000 ppm maybe, but this is question of the crop, specific crops you have. And of course, with increasing CO2, you can also increase the photosynthesis and the production. And we do experiments to grow with high growth temperatures. So that means the limit is more at 40 degrees. We all know that 40 degrees appear also in normal space. So crops don't die when they have enough water. And this is also crop specific. And we have a relation between also the CO2 level and the optimum growth temperature. And that's some things we want to find out. Next slide. So the impacts, of course, we want a water recovery up to 80% by not losing water in the closed environment. But we also have maybe the possibility to use bad water, like pre-treated gray water, for example, and to convert it into condensed water. So it's a means of water cleaning, or also using brackish water or saline water as a part of the evaporation. So this is not going through the crops, but through extra evaporators. And then we can also introduce, potentially introduce desalination in the greenhouse system. Yes. Then finally, I mentioned the CO2 accumulation for the productivity. And finally, if you close a system, you also have less problems with insects and reduce pesticides, or to work without pesticides. So this is the functioning. So we have three main elements. So the greenhouse, you see, the absorber. So we ventilate the air through the absorber, and the absorber is taking up the latent heat and the water. It's heating up, and we bring it to the thermochemical storage. So this is a combination of a concentrate storage, so chemical atmosphere, but also a thermal storage. So we heat it up as well. And in the night, it goes vice versa. We give heat to the absorber back, and then we expect evaporation, because the temperature of the solution is high and the temperature of the environment is low. And we can reverse the process and regain the water from the surface. So here you see, I don't know if you see my mouse. Here you see the collection of the water, and this is the absorber. And we have also the idea of having a kind of heating, additional heating to get a higher temperature. So let's say the solution is heated in the absorber to 40 degrees or 38 degrees, but maybe with 50 degrees, with a post heating in a solar collector, we can have a better regeneration and a higher concentration, and the system works even better. So these are the aspects we want to find out in the project. Next slide.
One moment. Okay, yeah.
So we have a little test greenhouse in Tunisia. Here you see on the top the pipes where we take the air out from the greenhouse, and on the bottom you see how we give back the treated air from the absorber back to the crop area. Next slide. Here you see some of the components. This is a heat exchanger. It's used for increasing the total surface. So normally it would be good to have a greenhouse with a big surface, but if you don't have it, you can add an air-to-air heat exchanger and increase the surface virtually, let's say, and by this having more space to get rid of heat through the daytime, but also in the night when you have the condensation. So the condensation mainly will take place in this box. Next slide. And then finally we have the absorber. It's installed beside the greenhouse, and we can give either air from the greenhouse and give it back, or we can circulate air between the absorber and the heat exchanger without touching the greenhouse, just for the regeneration purpose. Next slide. Here we develop a specific absorber. This is a specialty of Vortigy. So we have developed a kind of distribution element on the top, where we pump the desiccant inside, and it's distributed to all these openings, and then flowing down. And the other picture you see it to a very big surface, a textile surface, and there it's getting in contact with the greenhouse air. And this is a specific one because normally you have kind of dropping elements where desiccant drops from one element to the other. And here we have only a water film, and this will never create a drop, and we can reduce the takeover of salt to the air. Next slide. Here we make some tests how to optimize this absorber, because we see on these slides with fog or with color, or on the left side with thermographics, that the air is not distributing very well and the desiccant is not distributing well. So we try to improve the system through this project. Next slide. And here we work with 3D printing to create this kind of absorber systems, and that's also a part of the experiment, how to optimize this, especially also for high flow of the desiccant. So we have to bring a certain amount of water through this element and still guarantee the optimum dissipation to all the openings. These are kind of tricky works, the development. Next, I think this was the last slide. Oh no, this is the absorber, how it looks when it's next step. So this is for the larger greenhouse we will build. And these are kind of simplified designs for greenhouse business to reduce the costs on one side, but also to include these steps of further development to have better functioning. So for example, here we have not a single opening, but all the air comes all around the bottom open. And yes, next slide. That's same here. You see again, 3D thing. Okay, that was my presentation. Yes.
I have also two slides.
Maybe just to finalize, I was a bit surprised. But now this is the last slide, and here you see the planning for the larger greenhouse. So we have a kind of zigzag tunnel greenhouse with a double surface compared to normal tunnels to increase the heat exchange surface between the environment and the inside. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So.
Okay, that is the end of the presentation of the TheGreeFa. Thank you, Martin and Serena, for this nice presentation. We have one question, I think, for Martin. Is the fluid safe for the environment? Please.
So we actually work with magnesium chloride as the main desiccant and magnesium sulfate, and this is a kind of waste product from the solar salinas in Tunisia. So we made also some tests if just this waste product is qualified to use as a desiccant, and at the moment it looks as it's very good. So we can reduce the humidity around this solution to 30% relative humidity in the maximum of the concentration, and we give it a try. So in previous projects we have used pure magnesium chloride, and this is a matter of costs on one side to use this waste product, but also a matter of availability, because a pure magnesium chloride would have to be transported from let's say China or so, and it's very complicated to bring it to Tunisia. So this is a salt. It can do some damages, like table salt. If you have use it for de-icing or so, you have always problems with vegetation. And this is similar. So if you bring a large quantities of it to, let's say, a groundwater stock or so, this should not be happen. So we have to do some efforts, but it's not at all toxic. And it's a natural substance from the seawater. And you can also bring it back to the sea in these quantities. It's not at all. Anyway, it's going back to the sea because it's a waste product.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Quite detailed feedback with technical details. Thank you for it. Now is the turn for Rebecca Hetting, representing the Renaissance project. So, Rebecca, the floor is yours. Please share the presentation and please start it.
Thank you very much, Emil. I have to share my screen, but I cannot see. Ah, yeah, now I see it. I have to request control, but you already gave it to me, and there we go. Hope you can see my screen now.
Okay, I'm going to send you to the streaming. Please,
Yes.
please, could you start with the presentation mode? I see there's.
Yep.
Okay, now it's perfect. Please start.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Actually, this is a single slide from another presentation because I forgot to put the team, and it's something important to introduce myself and the whole research team. I am Rebecca Hetting from Deep Blue Consulting and Research, Italy. We are the responsible team for dissemination and communication of this project. And the project is about energy communities. So VUB, the Vrije Universiteit from Brussels, is coordinating this project. We are actually entering now the final phase. We'll go until October 2022, and we're happy to also announce that we are now focusing on the finalization of results and replicating our approach international pilot sites. But I'll go now directly to what is our value proposal for those who do not know us yet. So I will now present the actual presentation. Let me put it in full screen. Sorry, I think I'll go faster with my keyboard. Can you see the presentation also?
Yes, we see the presentation
Great.
mode.
Okay, thanks. So basically, the Renaissance project is all about promoting the deployment of energy communities. As some of you probably know, and I think you all know, we have now a European directive concerning energy for all. The Energy for All directive is finally introducing in the European regulation and the member states regulation the possibility of joining an energy community, of building up energy communities, constituting members in legal entities who can share and trade, self-consume and self-produce energy as prosumers. This was something already done in many European countries, but it was not formalized into something concrete. And actually now we have also a full legislation that is providing recommendations, clear regulations, and also incentives to this aim. Renaissance is, of course, a EU-funded project. We are proposing to this cluster and today on this webinar, all the companies involved and people participating to consider the possibility of joining and building an energy community, because we think that this could be a very important, let's say, a business case for the agro industry. Not only in terms of CO2 reduction, which is something that, of course, you all aim to do, but also it could be a way to reduce your energy bills and sell energy to the grid
and optimize, of course, also the production of energy, even for small businesses who do not have the capacity of building up large solar plants fields, for example, or do not have the possibility to produce considerable amount of energy to be sold. Joining an energy community means that you can link with other stakeholders on the local area, in the same area, not necessarily in the same domain. You can also join local institutions, you could join other services, you could join private citizens or group of citizens and build up an energy community. So I invite you to visit our website, understand what is the Renaissance approach and how you could also build your own approach independently from our research. But of course, now we would like to promote our approach and tools developed so far. What are we doing now? This presentation I have is honestly is the presentation we proposed to the replication sites we are now visiting worldwide. We are also proposing this to you, even if now we have almost reached the overall amount of replication sites that we are able to follow during the research. But of course, you are invited to still contact us in case you are interested, because of course some of the results of the Renaissance project are public results, open source tools, and of course all the team and partners involved in the research are available also for further support and advice on this topic. So what we propose as an approach is an approach that allows emerging energy communities to build up starting from the ideation phase. So what we support is basically exactly the initial part, when you have to take the decision of building up an energy community, involve partners, decide and design the preliminary layout of your energy community, and then go on with the implementation of assets, software and management systems. You can see here the concept, the basic concept of the project. We would like to support improvement of the uptake of energy produced locally, reducing consumer prices by 10 or 15%, due of course to the reduction in the bill and self-production, self-consumption of energy on site. And also we developed tools to combine grid design and management tools with the energy generation on site and the storage technology. We have developed the Energize tool, which I will present shortly after the introduction, to allow an initial preliminary optimization of the energy system and have an overview of what are the possibilities, the scenarios that each energy community can go after and choose among different options, compare different options. This is exactly what I just presented to you. Shortly, we start with supporting the design of these energy scenarios with a stakeholder engagement methodology called MAMCA, developed by the University of Brussels. And this is a participatory consensus building platform that allows stakeholder needs and objectives to be compared, evaluated, weighted, and also to build consensus on a single scenario. We also propose, of course, a tool for the collecting data for the optimal energy system layout. We support the data analysis and system modeling. We compile results and also provide some regulatory support in case it's needed. And then we conclude the process with a workshop that should be the moment in which the energy community is actually kicking off, and then we leave we leave them to their own destiny, hopefully a positive destiny. We have now been in India. This is our first international replication site visited. This was 2 weeks ago. We were there presenting the different scenarios for the Auroville community, and you can see there the participants to the workshop were kind of voting the different options and their needs, and basically moving their body towards a decision or the other. This is part of the MAMCA methodology, even if this was a bit informally done because we were not using the digital tools since they prefer to express themselves differently. But of course, the tool is able to support the decision making online and also virtually in case it's needed. The next step for energy communities would be collecting data, collecting consumption and production data, both the current, the actual consumption and production data, and in case you want to compare the scenarios, of course, you can also insert potential production information, what you would like to install as assets, and then compare the results. Where are the other slides? Oh, here. Sorry, matching slides. Anyway, this is what I just told you. The Energize tool allows the optimal configuration of your energy system based on the different scenarios. So you have to simply define or hypothesize the size and location of the new assets installed, and you can analyze the costs. Of course, this is a high-level ROE solutions that are proposed by the tool, but anyway, you can understand, you can see and compare the impact on the different components of the energy system, and you would receive suggestions on the optimal operation models. An additional result that we would like to introduce and insert in the Energize tool is the analysis of CO2 emission sources of the system, but this is an ongoing task for the final version of this tool. The tool has been designed by a team from CERT. I am also happy to see a colleague of the same departments that we are working with during this research. Deep Blue supported it in the development of the user interface of this tool to make it more usable for all end users, also those not really accustomed to the energy language. Of course, you need some technical information to be inserted, but in case you can also use default values. As you can see, it's very small, I can understand, but I'm moving the mouse over one of the fields that you can fill in. You can either fill it in with specific technical information about the assets that you want to install or you have already installed, but you can also load the default values for the same asset. What you would do as a user of this tool is to actually add one by one all the existing or planned assets in your energy system. You can also import the configuration files in case you have all information on CSV file. And you have a preview here. This is a very intuitive preview of what assets have been added. And so just to have an overview, and what you can do is then calculate the values. And in case you have more projects, you are also able to compare them. This is an example of how it should look like when you have a comparison of results. For example, you are comparing two projects that you have loaded on the Energize tool. You might also save 10 or 15 of them for the different hypotheses that you have, and then compare the results. For the moment, the tool is able only to compare couples of projects, but anyway, what you would see here is a comparison of the graphs of consumption and production of electricity. This is, of course, how it should look like, and this is how it actually looks like, because for the moment we did not yet develop. We are finalizing it now, the user interface for the results and for the graphs, because we would like them to be also interactive, and you should be able to explore the details of each part of the functions that would be shown. But this is what we have now. This is a MILP platform, a Dockerized software that allows the comparison of all the different energy input data that you load as a project. And here you would see, exactly as I just said, the different scenarios. Sorry, it's very small, but I wasn't able to make it bigger. You would have different scenarios, the first scenarios, the second scenario, third scenarios. In this case, it would be hybrid operation, biomass, or solar thermal. This is a simulation from our Greek pilot in Chimeria. And you can see what would happen in terms of energy production and consumption overall a single week, for example, depending on meteorological data, statistics about the cloud coverage for the area. It's all based on the information and the input. The more input, of course, you give to this tool, the more detailed the results would be. So getting to the conclusion, what would you get from the Renaissance approach? You would have different energy community options for your site, and of course also a stakeholder involvement process that allows both, let's say, collaboration on a technical point of view and on a social point of view, because this is important. If we do not realize that acceptance goes through the relationship and the networking that we are able to build with the different members of the community, only technical tools will not be enough to promote and to let's say, do this energy transition towards energy communities and decentralized, democratized energy production and consumption. You would get these different scenario options for your site and be able also to compare them through the Renergize tool. You would be able also, with our support, to organize workshops on regulatory issues and compare also the barriers that are preventing a community, for example, to scale up. And then an optional thing that Renaissance team can do for you is to write recommendation letters towards national ministries or support with the identification of other projects or funding or incentives towards the deployment or creation of a new energy communities. What do we need? Of course, the important support that we would need is your assistance in identifying and contacting local stakeholders. This is, of course, something that you have and we don't. Participation, active participation to the workshops, information, more detailed information as possible on energy consumption and production, specifications of existing installation, and information about the energy prices and tariffs locally, and also the different technologies in place as energy grid specifications. This is what I would like to have specified. And then, of course, also some indication about the preferred scenarios from your side, since you would be the ones promoting the deployment, the creation of a new energy community. Here are some images from the MAMCA workshops we had in the Dutch pilot. This is citizen engagement event where we tried also to inform the community about the existence of energy communities and invite them to join an energy community in Amnes. Here are some partners from Circe talking about the Renergize tool again. I will skip this. This is again the guided journey towards an energy community. So this is basically our, let's say, design to market proposition for with the Renaissance approach. You can get in touch with us. These are our addresses. Of course, you can also contact directly myself, and I will put you in contact with the coordination team. I don't know if there are answers. See answers. Maybe there are questions, and I can answer. And thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Rebecca, for a nice presentation of Renaissance. There is no question for you, I think, because of you are out of the original slot of the webinar. However, for me was quite interesting presentation showing the use of energy. Most probably the question will appear later on, as you could contact the cluster as a whole through email message, which I announcing several times. Maybe I have some generic question to some of you. I mean, for the representative of the project. I'm sharing just the slide of the webinar. except the COVID situation, what you have faced, what was the main problem which you try to solve in your project, and how you approach it, how you minimize this problem. So definitely COVID was not nice situation for all of us. We was stopped. I suppose that all of those projects, but maybe appear some other issues, some other problem challenges which you try to solve, which hasn't been scheduled. So please, this is open question. So who could be the first? Maybe, sorry, Serena, you are in my project, and I'm direct first for you.
Okay, I was also trying to answer a question, but okay, I answer.
Okay.
So we have some problem, and we ask also for extension of our project of 8 months. The reason of that, we have to build the demonstrator. Especially, we have a big problem in Tunis. So we have our partner from Germany, so Martin. They have to build this demonstrator in North Africa, and until last October, so it was not possible to fly there. So all the construction have a very huge delay in the delay. Also in Switzerland, we have some problems. So we build the demonstrator in Switzerland, but for the delivery, for the component. So a lot of components, especially for the automatization, they promise a delivery time 3 weeks, and then they arrive maybe in 3 months. Because a lot of things, components are from China, and also the supplier in Europe, they are not able to say the right delivery time. So we have this problem. Also, our partner, okay, they are doing survey and market analysis. They were able to do that, but everything it was online, so they were not able to visit greenhouse, personally. So it was possible to work in it, but not so. Also, the acceptance of greenhouse operator to take part on online meeting is not so high.
Okay, thank you, Serena. So quite many problems which I exactly remember, which you faced, but trying to solve. Dimitris, what could you give some feedback on any challenges, problems, and how you faced this?
Yes, as we mentioned, the COVID experience was very unpleasant, and during the first months of our project, that we would like to visit the actual the farms where our interventions will take place. That was not possible. We tried to have as many virtual meetings as possible in order to exchange information and sort the technical details, but it's not the same. That was a bit of, let's say, it cost us some time during the design phase. And the other thing that we didn't expect was the data availability regarding energy consumption, which we tried to make some assumptions, but because of the different nature of each pilot farm, experimental in a university, experimental in a big institute, and commercial ones. Because of the different nature, we had different data available. So we asked for an extension of one of our tasks in order to gather real data. We were confident that the systems that we were designing will either way cover the needs of the farm, but we would like to have a more clear picture of what's going on inside them. This is also something that, while discussing it with other colleagues, for example, with Vas from AFF, the fragmentation of data availability about energy consumption in agriculture in general.
Okay, thank you, Dimitris. Indeed, the online meetings are much more than the face-to-face, but discussing in quite huge teams, as all of us have, about design. It is almost impossible. At least it is trouble to make one approach. Thank you for the feedback. Rebecca, could you give us some feedback on any challenges, problems, issue which you approach which wasn't unexpected, please?
Of course, as everybody else has mentioned, of course, the COVID outbreak has stopped most of our on-site activities. We had to shift to online virtual workshops and engagement strategies. This was also a challenge, but we have lots of lessons learned to this concern. So there are also, I mean, the good news is that we didn't travel, so the CO2 emissions were quite reduced. We were able actually to also at a distance. Of course, we had also some issues concerning how do you say, supply, hardware supply for some long periods of the project, and this has also
I don't know if I have only from my Rebecca.
Oops.
Rebecca, could
Sorry?
you hear us? I think
Something
there's
happened?
yes, there are some cutting from your side.
Give me a second.
Time to time.
Give me one. Maybe I put off my camera. Is it better now? Any better?
Looks like it is better. So if you could finish, please.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go very short. So anyway, we just had some problems about installing smart metering systems. So we had to use a lot of simulation data or historical data instead of using actual data from our metering, and we had to then recover afterwards, collecting data in the recent months. Replication process is finally, unfortunately, ongoing now, and we're very happy. And basically, our results are all there. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. So, Michalis, would you like to tell us something about your project problems, challenges, shortly, please?
Yeah. So yeah, only challenges in this project. No, just kidding. So yeah, the main challenge was, of course, and I will focus on that me as well, on the COVID situation, because it was a little before our project kickstarted. And so, being a CSA also project, we had a lot of arranged many physical things to do, meetings and exhibitions and the workshops and the data collection stuff. And the solution was, of course, the extension we got, and a little bit of patience as well.
Thank you, Michalis. Thank you. So, any problems, I suppose, has been solved as the team is multi, let's say, purpose with different expertise and was solved. Thank you once again, Prakriti. I'm going to direct to you as a representative of HyPErFarm. Could you tell us about any issue which you face and how you solve it?
So I don't know if Ilse is there, but I can tell that what happened due to COVID was mainly we couldn't meet in person yet. So we had an annual conference planned in November, but that was really, I think there was another peak of COVID, so we had to do it online. That was major effect. And then we had some delays because for the pilots that we are making, we need to order materials from other countries like China. So there have been some delays to delivery of all those materials that help us to build the pilots on time. So we have a few months delays for each of the pilots. So that is second biggest impact of COVID. And then I think the third one is just that we had to adjust with new way of working. So
thank you, Prakriti. Thank you for this feedback, and good luck in your new situation which you face personally, which is last but not least, Bas Paris, please let us know something if you approach some issue or not.
So apart from COVID, because I think we all have the same, I think our ongoing challenge is to ensure that we really have, effective participation in our platform, to make sure that enough, that farmers access the platform and that they contribute to the platform. And I think what we have the way we're overcoming is that we have quite an effective communication and dissemination strategy. We have very good partners in that regard. And we hold a lot of workshops, and we really try and make sure promote the platform and say, look, it's here, please access it, please use it. On a more personal level, I agree with what Dimitris also said for the methodology or the data issues around energy use in agriculture. It's always hard to really know how you're going to tackle energy use issues if the data is so fragmented. And I think this is also a very important outcome, actually, that we need a lot more focus on that in future projects. Yeah, and for us as well, the platform, it has many different categories. It has 5, it has commercial technology, scientific papers, and these are all, we translate them all and we make them available and this is very meticulous, basically. So I guess another challenge is to make sure that this all gets done on time, but I think we're managing.
Okay, thank you, Bas, for this feedback. Well, I think we approach the finish of this webinar. From my side, I would like to thanks very much for all the presenters, all the projects to give very detailed, very comprehensive presentation. And I would like to give also thanks for the attendees for the engagement, question, comments, and for the interest. Then you could approach all of us through email message on this email address area-0@area-0.eu. All of team presented here from the cluster from 6 projects are under of this email message, and if you direct to the right person, right project, you will receive the answer. Please follow us on the social media. Shortly will be announced common social media for Area 0 cluster, where we are going to announce next webinars and also other events from a particular project. So thank you for your attention and keep tuned with us. See you soon.